things I needed to say yes to, things I needed to say no to. Again, no, I think culturally pretty difficult word. I still struggle with it. I remember asking my mom, like, what are boundaries in Urdu? Like, how do you say that? And like, I still am like, the word seems so strong. And I'm like, it's not a wall. It's not a divar. It's not, it's a way of interacting, but it's not actually. Or how do you say privacy? Privacy instead of secrecy, in Urdu. So learning about there's needs, something called boundaries, something called limits. And then, of course, the third part, right? How do I begin to do that relationally? How do I begin to actually exercise that? First with people maybe a little bit lighter. The most difficult one is always with family, getting over and working through guilt or shaming, which I know can happen in our culture sometimes. It's just part of it seems like it's been mixed in with love, differentiating between love and guilting and shaming, and like love and obligation, as opposed to like a genuine ethic of this is from my heart versus because I think I have to, otherwise you won't love me and you're going to ostracize me. All of these things, I see you nodding. I think these are just part of the diaspora. They're also, I just want to say, part of many different cultures, but we're focusing here on South Asian, and they see diaspora worldwide. So sensations, feelings, articulation into needs, having needs actually into boundaries and limit setting and yeses in the world. That was hugely empowering. And I think early on, watching other people go through that and then seeing joy return, that the joy, the aliveness, the happiness, the loving that came from, I'm actually free. I feel the voices inside my head are calmer. I'm not criticizing and judging myself in the way that I've inherited. I'm also more open to other people's limits. I am better able to love in a way that's actually going, I want the best for you, and like want to figure out how we compromise without necessarily having to sacrifice. Another taboo thing for anybody who's hearing. I'm like, oh my gosh, isn't love sacrifice? What's the difference between compromise and sacrifice? So that just meant that I felt like there was no work in the world that I wanted to do more than this, to start to engage with groups, individual therapy. That's kind of the mix that I do, individual therapy groups, trainings, to really go, let's start to free ourselves relationally. And so the book emerged from that. And then the model, we can talk more about that. The model is based on one that I was taught pretty early. And I want to hear more from you. I can come back and tell people about that model. But the model really helped break down for me the voices in our head or the voices in relationships that basically keep us stuck. And then over the past 17 years of personal therapy and with clients, the book came out of that going, oh, actually, there's an alternate model. There are voices in our head that are alternate, that we can be with ourselves or with each other, that are the way that we thrive, actually. And so breaking this idea of thriving is grit, which can happen, right? Muscle over things, be strong, but don't really feel anything. Or it's just innate. You're just born resilient. And sure, you can have traits that your temperament, definitely helps you have things, have you bounce back faster. But this is more a process. It's a way that we can be with ourselves. And I hope from this actually communally too, right? That we go, instead of criticizing and neglecting, basically, we'll get into that in a moment. When we're feeling vulnerable, instead of criticizing and neglecting, we actually move into nurturance, boundary setting and protection, the soulfulness, creativity, right? We support ourselves in thriving instead of these things that we've learned to survive that break us down. So that's a big mouthful of like how some of where it came from.
Yeah, everything you've shared and said so far, I can definitely relate to and recognize those aspects in my own journey. It's so nice to meet someone like you who's gone through so much healing and helps transform other people's lives as well through the tools and techniques that you've learned. So yes, I'm very excited to kind of get into the questions of the way that you approach your work from a heart-centered place rather than just a thought-centered place. When I was reading it